Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we've got something a bit different. We're looking at possibly the shortest piece of source material we've ever tackled.
Yeah, it's quite the challenge, actually, just 4 lines.
Exactly. Normally, we're digging through massive reports, long interviews, sometimes whole books. But today, 4 lines. And the mission is to show that, well, depth isn't always about quantity.
It really isn't. And when you have so little text, every single word, even the punctuation or lack thereof, it just carries enormous weight, almost seismic, like you said.
So this piece was shared by a listener. It's titled Lost.
Lost. Yeah.
And we really have to treat it as this complete miniature cosmology almost.
That's a good way to put it, a cosmology in miniature.
The details we have are crucial. It was written by someone named Sharbell.
Right.
He was 17 at the time, and this was back in 1997.
1997, okay.
And here's the really key piece of context, the thing we absolutely have to keep front and center as we analyze this. Sharbell is a non-native English speaker.
Ah, okay. That changes things. Or rather, it adds a really important layer to how we need to approach the language itself.
Definitely. And apparently this poem is one of quite a few creative pieces he wrote around that time.
Interesting. So not just a one-off thought, but part of maybe a period of creative exploration for him.
Seems like it. So our mission today, our deep dive, is to take this incredibly brief, powerful text and really unpack it. We're looking for the layers of meaning, the themes, the structure, focusing purely on interpretation, not just summarizing.
And that non-native speaker element is like the skeleton key, isn't it? We have to look at the language choices, maybe slightly unconventional phrasing here or there, not as mistakes, but as potentially very direct, unfiltered artistic choices.
Exactly. Choices that maybe cut through some of the clutter a native speaker might automatically fall into.
Right. It forces a kind of purity, perhaps. So yeah, the goal is to see what kind of universe we can find packed into these, 16 words?
16 words. Let's start unpacking. Okay, so let's ground ourselves first. Sharbell, 17 years old, 1997.
17. That's such a potent age, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's often that time of, intense idealism, maybe from childhood, sort of crashing headfirst into the complexities and, frankly, the disappointments in the adult world.
Yeah, the messy reality hits. And that collision point is just fertile ground for exploring these big cosmic themes: loss, change, disillusionment.
It really is. You feel things so intensely at that age. A personal setback can feel like the end of the world. Literally.
Exactly. It's the perfect incubator for profound disillusionment. If you look at, poets and writers throughout history, so many powerful works, laments, even philosophical statements come out of that specific transition.
That feeling that the world is suddenly broken.
Right. And because the loss of your own idealism feels so total, so world-shattering, the writing that comes out often projects that feeling onto the entire universe. The personal loss gets scaled up to cosmic collapse.
Okay, and what about the year 1997? Does that add anything specific, or is the poem more timeless?
Well, it's interesting. The poem feels timeless, which is part of its power. But 1997, it wasn't a year marked by one single massive global trauma, perhaps, but it was definitely a time of transition.
How so?
We were post-Cold War, right? The sort of bipolar world order had dissolved. We were right on the cusp of the big internet boom, the sort of early stages of digital globalization taking hold.
Okay, yeah, things were definitely shifting.
The cultural ground was shifting. And for a teenager, that external sense of flux, that uncertainty, probably resonates deeply with the internal flux of just growing up, figuring things out.
So it might provide a backdrop, even if the poem isn't explicitly about 1997. It adds to that feeling of change being in the air.
Exactly. It helps ground the feeling, maybe, but the themes themselves, idealism, disillusionment, loss, they feel much broader, much more universal than just one specific year.
Which brings us to the title. Just one word. Lost.
Brutally simple and incredibly effective.
It does so much work, doesn't it? It's an adjective describing a state. I am lost.
It's also a past participle. Something has been lost. The action of losing is already completed.
Right. It implies finality. And it's a status, a condition.
It frames your entire reading experience before you even get to the first line. You know this isn't going to be a story about finding something.
No. It sets you up for absence, for misplacement, forfeiture, maybe even, permanent damage. The tragedy is announced right at the start.
And that's structurally quite brilliant, actually. The title is the thesis statement, if you will. The poem then provides the evidence, building the argument, and the final line delivers the concluding proof.
It promises that punch of cosmic finality, and the poem delivers it.
Absolutely.
Now let's circle back to that crucial point, the non-native speaker context.
Yeah.
How should we think about that specifically with the word lost?
Well, I think it highlights that potential for directness we talked about. When you're working outside your first language, the words you reach for are often the most fundamental, the most core concepts.
You bypass the layers of idiom or maybe poetic convention.
Possibly. Yeah. A native English-speaking poet, especially someone young trying to be poetic, might feel tempted to use something more, I don't know, ornate, like the vanishing or absence or forfeiture of light or something.
Something that sounds more literary.
Exactly. But Lost just cuts right through all of that. It's raw, it's immediate.
It avoids cliché, perhaps. Native speakers can sometimes fall back on phrases that feel familiar, maybe a bit worn out.
That's a great point. Sharbell, coming at it fresh, maybe accesses a purity of vocabulary. He has to consciously select the word that best fits the enormous feeling he wants to convey, rather than relying on instinct developed over decades of speaking the language.
So we have to assume that every word choice, even if it strikes our native ear as slightly unusual, is deliberate. It's the most direct path he found to express this feeling.
Yes, we read it as artistic choice, not error, and that often results in incredibly pure, potent imagery. It strips away intellectual layers that can sometimes, ironically, obscure the raw emotions.
So the language itself becomes part of the art, not just a vehicle for it.
Precisely. The potential unconventionality is part of the effect. It adds to that feeling of raw honesty.
Okay, let's dive into the poem itself now. Line 1. It starts with this. Well, this incredibly bold statement. Heaven was on the earth.
Wow. Yeah, that's a radical opening, theologically, philosophically. It's asserting immanence, right? The divine, the perfect state, wasn't somewhere else up in the sky or in some abstract realm. It was here.
Anchored. Experienced in the physical world.
Exactly. It evokes Eden, a golden age, a time of perfect harmony where the spiritual and the material weren't separate. They were integrated.
And that preposition, on, feels so important. Like you said, it wasn't just visiting or touching Earth. Heaven was structurally part of Earth, built on it.
Suggesting a kind of accessible, maybe even tangible perfection. You could experience it directly.
Then comes the hammer blow immediately. The tense was.
Right, that single word changes everything. The perfection is already over. It's in the past, concluded before the poem even really gets going.
So the entire poem exists in the shadow of that loss. It's inherently melancholic.
Deeply melancholic. It's not a poem saying, heaven is possible here. It's saying, heaven used to be here and it's gone. It's a lament for something perfect that's been irrevocably lost. The speaker is living in the aftermath.
So the first line primarily serves to establish the sheer magnitude of what has been forfeited. This wasn't just a minor setback. It was the loss of heaven itself from the earthly realm.
Precisely, setting the stakes incredibly high. But then the very next line introduces this immediate, deeply unsettling contradiction.
Line 2, darkness was behind the stars.
Okay, so if Earth was heaven, if everything was perfect down here, why was there darkness lurking up there, right at the source of celestial light?
Yeah, the stars. They symbolize light, obviously, but also guidance, constancy, order.
Heaven's right. Celestial perfection.
So putting darkness in relation to them immediately signals a fundamental problem, a threat to the very structure of reality as it was perceived in line 1.
But the phrasing, behind the stars, that's interesting. What does behind suggest here? This is where that non-native perspective might be creating something really powerful. Does behind mean simply far away beyond? Or does it mean concealed by, hidden just out of sight?
Like lurking.
Exactly. If Sharbell meant beyond, like way out in the void, maybe he'd use a word like that, or surrounding. But behind, in English, often carries that implication of being hidden, maybe deceptively close.
Okay, I see. So it's not necessarily an external enemy attacking from the outside.
It suggests the darkness, the flaw, the potential for chaos wasn't outside the perfect system described in line 1. It was integrated into it somehow, hidden from view perhaps, but structurally present.
Wow. So the darkness isn't just absence of light. It's like a necessary component or an inherent weakness, something built into the cosmos itself.
That's how it feels, reading it that way. It suggests the flaw was there from the beginning, concealed by the very source of light and order of the stars.
Which implies that even that peak perfection, that heaven on earth, was inherently unstable. It carried the seeds of its own destruction from the start.
Yes. The universe was potentially rigged to fail. The fall wasn't just possible, it was maybe inevitable because the flaw wasn't external, it was internal. hidden behind the symbols of perfection.
That feels much more insidious
Yeah.
and devastating than just an outside attack.
It really does. It's like discovering a fatal structural flaw in something you thought was perfectly designed. It makes the threat feel deeply personal, inescapable.
So these first two lines set up this incredible paradox. You have the memory of accessible, experienced perfection on Earth.
Contrasted immediately with this hidden, ever-present structural threat concealed right within the celestial order.
Sharbell, at 17, is articulating that gut-wrenching moment of realization many people have that the world or existence itself seems fundamentally flawed, that the fall from grace, whatever that grace was somehow inevitable.
Yeah, it gives those first two lines a profound, tragic weight. They're not just setting a scene, they're establishing a doomed narrative arc right from the outset.
Okay, so we have perfection established but already lost, line 1, and this inherent hidden flaw, line 2. Now we get to the pivot. Line 3 feels like the engine of the poem's change.
It absolutely is. It's the bridge connecting the initial state to the final outcome. And it does so with this incredible leap in scale.
The line is, over the ages, things have changed.
Well, yeah, that shift from the specific imagery, heaven, earth, stars, to this vast, almost geological or mythological timescale, the ages.
It immediately elevates the poem beyond just a personal feeling. The ages suggests a process that's gradual, immense, inevitable. Not a sudden catastrophe, but a slow grind.
It gives the poem this almost philosophical or mythical weight, doesn't it? It sounds like something you'd read in an ancient text describing the long decline of the world, the fall from a golden age.
Definitely. It implies that the speaker's personal sense of loss or disillusionment isn't just their feeling. It's part of this vast cosmic process of decay that's been happening forever.
And that huge timescale is necessary, narratively. It explains how that subtle, hidden flaw mentioned in line 2, the darkness behind the stars, eventually managed to overwhelm everything and lead to the conclusion in line 4.
So time itself is the agent of change, the force that exploits the inherent vulnerability.
That's how it reads. Time allows the hidden darkness to work its way through the system. It's almost like entropy, isn't it? The natural tendency for order to decay into disorder over vast stretches of time. This line feels like a poetic expression of entropy.
Okay, and then the second part of the line, things have changed, as remarkably vague.
It is. And I think, like the title, that vagueness is actually its superpower.
How so?
Because it's so nonspecific, it becomes universal. Sharbell doesn't have to pin it down. He doesn't say what things changed. Was it politics, society, the environment, relationships, his own perspective?
Right. It allows the reader, you, listening, to project your own experiences of loss or disillusionment onto it.
Exactly. It could be the loss of childhood innocence. It could be disillusionment with a political ideal. It could be watching a relationship decay. It could be a spiritual crisis. The vagueness makes it applicable to almost any scenario where something good has been lost over time.
So it functions purely as the narrative mechanism, the bridge. It connects the initial state, lines 1 and 2, with the final consequence, line 4. It provides the how the darkness took over.
It justifies the collapse. It makes the final outcome feel like the logical result of that initial hidden flaw working its way out over the ages.
Let's look at the tense again here. Things have changed. Present perfect.
Crucial choice. It's not simple past. Things changed. That would imply completed action in the past, something historical and maybe detached from the present.
But have changed connects the past to the present.
Precisely. It means the transformation that happened over the ages is still relevant now. Its consequences are active, being felt in the speaker's current reality. The change process might have taken ages, but its result defines the present moment.
So, the speaker isn't just recounting ancient history, they're living inside the result of that history. The feeling of being lost now is the direct ongoing consequence of that slow erosion.
Yes. It connects that immense impersonal timescale of the ages directly to the speaker's personal present sense of loss and disorientation. We are, the poem suggests, the inheritors of this long decay.
It frames the change not as an accident or a specific mistake, but as the natural, inevitable outcome of that initial condition having darkness embedded within perfection from the start.
It gives a chilling logic to the eventual collapse, doesn't it? It elevates the poem from just expressing sadness to making a statement about the fundamental nature of existence, or at least existence as the speaker perceives it. This line carries huge philosophical weight.
Which brings us, inevitably, to the final line, the destination that was promised right back in the title, lost.
The culmination of the whole narrative arc.
Line 4, and the stars were lost in the dark.
And there it is. the complete victory of the darkness that was only hinted at, lurking behind the stars in line 2. It's the total reversal of line 1, where heaven was on earth. Now, even the heavens themselves are lost.
The light is extinguished, or at least completely enveloped. Those stars, symbols of constancy, guidance, hope, celestial order, they're consumed.
It signifies absolute cosmic disorder. If the stars are lost, what hope is there for navigation? What guidance remains? Our fundamental markers of direction and stability are gone.
Let's really focus on that shift in relationship between the darkness and the stars. Line 2, darkness was behind the stars. Darkness was hidden, subordinate, potential.
Right.
Line 4, and the stars were lost in the dark. Now the stars are inside the darkness. The power dynamic has completely flipped.
The darkness is no longer lurking. It's the dominant medium. It's pervasive. The stars haven't just dimmed, they are engulfed by it. The hidden threat has become the overwhelming reality.
It's the total failure of the system. The stars, representing structure, reliability, maybe even meaning they're now obscured, maybe extinguished, or perhaps their purpose, their meaning, has been lost within the chaos.
If the very source of light and guidance is itself lost within the darkness, then yeah, finding direction becomes impossible. It's a state of ultimate disorientation.
And again, the grammatical choice feels really significant. The passive voice were lost.
Devastatingly effective, isn't it? The stars didn't just wander off or burn out naturally. They were lost. Something was done to them.
It implies they were victims. Victims of that overwhelming force, the slow grind of the ages from line 3, acting on the inherent flaw from line 2.
That passive voice captures that feeling of powerlessness so perfectly. Especially resonant, perhaps, for someone feeling disillusioned at age 17. The collapse feels like it happened to you, to the world. It wasn't your fault, maybe it wasn't anyone's fault, it was just fated.
Right. It's an indictment of the cosmos, almost. An indictment of fate, suggesting that perfect structures were doomed to fall from the start because of that hidden flaw.
They didn't choose to fail. Time and that inherent darkness overwhelmed them. It gives us insight into maybe how Sharbell was processing the world at 17, perhaps feeling that the chaos or loss he felt, internally or externally, wasn't just bad luck, but the inevitable unfolding of a flawed system.
So if we pull back and look at the 4 lines together, the narrative arc is incredibly clear and complete.
It really is a masterclass in economy. You have
The ideal state, heaven was on the earth. Accessible perfection, but already past.
2. The inherent flaw, darkness, was behind the stars. The hidden vulnerability built in.
3. The mechanism of decay over the ages, things have changed. Time inevitably exploiting the flaw.
And 4. The total defeat, final loss. And the stars were lost in the dark. The complete collapse of order, light, and guidance.
It's just remarkably efficient storytelling. 16 words sketching out a whole cosmology of the fall from grace.
And what's so striking is that Sharbell achieves this, as we keep saying, working outside his native language. He distills concepts that philosophers and myths explore over volumes into this incredibly tight, potent structure.
The economy forces the language choices to be raw, direct. There's no room for filler. Every word has to do maximum work. And the result is this pure, resonant lament. Hashtag outro.
So, reflecting on this deep dive into just 4 lines, it really underscores the power of compression in art, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Lost sounds almost deceptively simple when you just read it aloud.
Right.
But digging into it reveals this incredibly sophisticated, fully realized narrative of decline.
It's genuinely impressive for a 17-year-old writer, and especially, as we've noted, one writing in a second language. It suggests a really mature, albeit perhaps bleak, philosophical outlook developing early on.
And it speaks volumes about how universal these themes are. Paradise lost, the existence of darkness, the passage of time leading to decay, the loss of guidance. Sharbell taps into these ancient, fundamental human anxieties using only the most basic, powerful images. Heaven, earth, stars, darkness.
Anyone can connect with those symbols regardless of background.
Exactly.
And I think for you, listening, one key takeaway is appreciating how sometimes unconventional phrasing, maybe born from that non-native perspective, can actually be an artistic strength.
Yeah, by maybe sidestepping the well-worn paths of native poetic convention, Sharbell's lines hit with this raw, unfiltered honesty. It cuts straight to the feeling.
It bypasses that intellectual filter sometimes and just lands emotionally.
And that youthful idealism we talked about, the capacity to even conceive of heaven on earth, that's exactly what makes the final line, and the stars were lost in the dark, so utterly devastating. It's the sound of a profound hope being completely shattered.
Yeah. It's a four-line encapsulation of despair, really. A worldview that confronts the tragic possibility that even our highest ideals, our guiding lights, might contain the seeds of their own failure.
Which leads us to that final provocative thought for you to take away.
Yeah.
The poem paints this picture of cosmic guidance failing. The stars, humanity's most ancient symbols of constancy, navigation, hope, are lost.
They've been swallowed by the dark.
So, the question to reflect on is this. What are the stars in your own life? What are those familiar markers, maybe career goals, core beliefs, fundamental relationships, sources of meaning that you rely on for direction and stability?
The things you navigate by.
Exactly. Are any of them perhaps silently slipping away? Is there a hidden darkness behind the stars in your own understanding of the world, some unacknowledged flaw or vulnerability? And what happens when the ages, the slow passage of your own life and times, inevitably bring that darkness to the forefront? What happens when your stars, too, risk getting lost in the dark?
That's a heavy thought to end on, but a powerful one, something to definitely mull over.
Indeed.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.